I've started. So we are going to continue from where Siddharth Prabhu left. He concluded with shloka number 95 in chapter 1, which will cover Chaitanya Tattva. So I'm not going to go back to explain the structure because I think it has been explained few times, so it should be clear. So I see a lot of similarity between Chaitanya Charitamrita and Bhagavatam, where sages actually raise all the important questions and Bhagavatam continues to answer that over time. So here Kaviraj Goswami builds up this whole nice context of all the, he gives us due, he glorifications to Guru, spiritual master, basically, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all this, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he builds the context over the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita, justifying all the statements that he made in the first few shlokas. So the pattern is similar, but the content is a little different, but there is still a lot of similarity. So I'll go to the first shloka. Yeah. So the first shloka, how do we recite this together, Prabhu, or how do we? Because I think there was a request you made last time.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So we'll start. Tattva vastu Krishna Krishna Bhakti Prema Rupa Nama Sankirtana Saba Ananda Swarupa. The absolute truth is Sri Krishna, and loving devotion to Sri Krishna exhibited in pure love is achieved through congregational chanting of the holy name, which is the essence of all bliss. So there are no purports here. So what I have tried to do is, wherever I could find something from Srila Prabhupada's purports given in some other context, try to see if I can relate them with the current shloka. So let's go to the next one. In this Surya Chandra Bahirera Tamase Vinashe Bahir Vastu Ghatapada Adise Prakashe. The absolute truth is Sri Krishna, and loving devotion to Sri Krishna exhibited in pure love is achieved through congregational chanting of the holy name, which is the essence. I'm sorry. I don't know why there is some typo here. I will have to go back to the original.
Should I read?
Yeah, Prabhu.
97, right? The translation.
96, Prabhu.
Okay. The absolute truth is Sri Krishna.
Sri Krishna.
And loving devotion to Sri Krishna exhibited in pure love is achieved through congregation chanting of the holy name, which
that is 96. The next one.
The 97th.
Yeah.
The sun and moon dissipate the darkness of the external world and thus reveal external material objects like pots and plates.
Right. So it's pretty evident that sun and the moon drive away darkness and reveal external objects. These two brothers, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, they dissipate the darkness of ignorance, covering the living beings and enlighten them with the knowledge of the absolute truth. So there is this constant comparison between Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu with sun and moon, and Prabhupada explains that much more explicitly in the upcoming shlokas. So here, Dui Bhai Hridayera Kshali Andakara Dui Bhagavata Sange Karana Sakshatkara. But these two brothers, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, dissipate the darkness of the inner core of the heart, and thus they help one meet the two kinds of Bhagavatas, persons or things in relationship with the personality of God. Now, if we look at this shloka, there is this mention, and it'll come up in the upcoming shlokas, that coming of sun and moon together itself is a spectacle. It's a rarity, right? And both coming together to dissipate the darkness of this world is going to be wonderful. And we are going to relish that as we move on to hear the other shlokas in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Eka Bhagavata Bada Bhagavata Sastra Ara Bhagavata Bhakta Bhakti Rasa Patra. So one of the Bhagavatas is the great scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the other is the pure devotee absorbed in the mellows of loving devotion. So there is a purport which Prabhupada has given against the famous shloka glorifying Bhagavatam, Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhakti Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So against that particular shloka, Prabhupada has given this purport which essentially compares the person Bhagavata with the scripture Bhagavata. So he goes on to say that both are competent remedies and either of them can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles. So if we have associations with one of them, our obstacles towards the process of bhakti will be removed, will be eliminated. And then the devotee Bhagavata is as good as the book Bhagavata because the devotee leads his life as per the book. So the devotee is exemplifying the instructions in Bhagavatam basically by leading a life which is very coherent with what's mentioned in the scripture. And then the book Bhagavata is full of information about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees who are also Bhagavatas. So they are identical. So it's a cyclic reference. So we see that within the book Bhagavata, there is a mention in fact, there's a complete mention of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. We'll hear about Ambarish Maharaj, we hear about Dhruva, Prahlada, so many devotees. And these devotees exemplify the book itself, and therefore they are identical. So it's a cyclic relationship which is mentioned. So therefore they are identical. And then the devotee Bhagavata is a direct representative of Bhagavan. So by pleasing the devotee, one can receive the book, benefit of reading the book itself. And a great example of that is Narada Muni. So Narada Muni in his past life was born to a maidservant. When she was carrying him in her womb, she would nicely serve all the Vaishnava sadhus, serving them and eating from their remnants, serving them very nicely. And the child who was getting nourished by that food by that prasadam was Narada Muni, and he completely benefited by that. And just by associating with such pure devotees, Narada Muni himself became a great devotee of the Lord. So that's the mention here, and that's the example. The messages of the book Bhagavata therefore have to be received from the devotee Bhagavata, and the combination of these two will help the neophyte devotee make progress. So when we actually start to read Bhagavatam, there are topics which may appear esoteric to us, and devotees who have come in that parampara, and if they explain and reveal the book to us, it really starts to connect. So we are able to connect to the Supreme Lord through his pure devotees, and we will be able to make a lot of progress in our bhakti journey because the obstacles are gone. We are directly associating with the devotees, and we are hearing the pure instructions of Bhagavatam. So that's the sum and substance of 99. Moving on to the next one. Dhui Bhagavata Dwara Diya Bhakti Rasa Tanhara Hridaye Tanra Premahaya Vasa. Though the actions of these two Bhagavatas, the Lord instills the mellow of transcendental loving service into the heart of a living being, and thus the Lord in the heart of his devotee comes under, and I've underlined the word control, of the devotee's love. And this is a very important line. There are no purports here, but I wanted to take something out from Srila Prabhupada's purports and the references he has given in other shlokas. So here, this is a very beautiful translation. Here it's being mentioned that through these actions, Lord is bringing in love in devotee's heart for him to be controlled by the devotee's love for him. So one is reminded of the famous pastime of Durvasa Muni and Ambarish Maharaj, where because Durvasa Muni basically he took bath, and basically that was Ekadashi day, and Ambarish Maharaj, by consulting all his superiors, he broke the fast because it has to be broken on a Dwadashi. by sipping a glass of water. So it was sipping water, not exactly a glass of water, but sipping water. And that was not actually violating the norms because it wasn't a proper food. But at the same time, it was good enough to break the fast. So when Durvasa Muni came to know of this and it came to his knowledge, he basically created a demon and sent it to chase down Ambarish Maharaj. And this is that moment where Sudarshan Chakra, who was actually at the disposal of Ambarish Maharaj, wasn't waiting for Lord's instruction. He immediately set off to protect his dear devotee, protect Lord's dear devotee, basically. So it's a very beautiful shloka from Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.63, where Lord says, when Durvasa Muni is basically chased down, he goes to all the demigods, he doesn't find any respite. And finally, he comes to Narayana to save him from this Sudarshan Chakra's potency. And Lord says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Aham Bhakta Paradino, He Aswatantra Iva Dvija, Sadhu Bir Grashta Hridayo, Bhakter Bhakta Jana Priyaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said to the Brahmana, in this case Durvasa Muni, I am completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I am not at all independent. Because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires, I sit only within the course of their hearts. What to speak of my devotee? Even those who are devotees of my devotee are very dear to me. So Lord goes on to qualify that devotees of devotees are even more dearer to him. So uh, Prabhupada makes a very nice commentary, and that's where everything that he writes has to be clearly, we have to scrutinizingly read it. So the reason why Lord comes under the direct control of his devotees is because the devotees are actually Anya Bilashita Shunya. In other words, they don't have any material desires in their heart. Now, if we put this statement in retrospective of what has just happened, uh, any other person would have said tit for tat. Let me, take my revenge against Durvasa Muni because he set off this demon against me. But since Ambarish Maharaj is such a pure devotee, he's devoid of all material desires. He's nothing. And to become Lord's exemplified devotee, you have to show tolerance, you have to show purity of heart, kindness. There's so much of qualifications. And Lord is completely aware of that. And he knows that if I'm going to leave this judgment back to Durvasa Muni, back to Ambarish Maharaj, he's not going to do anything in the contrary. So he's such a trust in his devotees. And that's what is being mentioned out here. And in fact, there is a mention that it's not just his devotees, but devotees are also very dear to him. And this is one of the shlokas from Kulashekar Alvar, verse 25 from Mukundamala Stotra. And I think this is a very shloka close to our dear Sudhir Gopal Prabhu, and he quotes it many a times. So I want to read this out. So it says, Majjaman, um, मज्जन्मना फलम मधु इदम मधुकैट बारे मत प्रार्थनीय मधु अनुग्रह. Sorry, sorry, Prabhu. Sorry, Prabhu. Prabhu, I'll just have a glass of water and come. Sorry.
मज्जन्मना फलम् इदं मधुकैटवारे फलमिदं मधुकैटवारे मत्प्रार्थनीयमदनुग्रह एष एव तद्भृत्य भृत्य परिचारक भृत्य भृत्य भृत्यस्य भृत्य इति मां स्मर लोकनाथ जन्मनः फलमिदं मधुकैटवारे मत्प्रार्थनीयमदनुग्रह एष एव तद्भृत्य भृत्य परिचारक भृत्य भृत्य भृत्यस्य भृत्य इति मां स्मर लोकनाथ हरे कृष्ण
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhu. So here there's a mention that, O enemy of Padu and Kaitaba, O Lord of the universe, the perfection of my life and the most cherished mercy that you will show would be for you to consider me the servant of 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 your servant. So basically there are 7 mentions of servant of servant. So that's the mood of Kulashekar Alvar. So he's basically trying to say that this is what I want to be. This is what I I wish to be, because as much as you are, in the it's not a hierarchy per se, but as much you are serving your devotees and they are getting served by other devotees, that much they are dearer to the Lord. So that's the whole mood of Kulashekar Alvar here. So moving on to the next shloka. एक अद्भुत समकाले दोनर प्रकाशा आरा अद्भुत चित्त गुहारा tamakare nasha. The first wonder is that both brothers, which is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, appear simultaneously, and the other is that they illuminate the innermost depths of the heart. Now, why is this called wonderful? Why is this chain of shlokas called wonderful? The reason is sun and moon appear simultaneously, and that's a rarity. It's a spectacle. You don't see them coming together at all. I mean, at least it's probably not imaginable. And when they do come, the illumination is going to be double, and the illumination is going to be so strong that they reach out to the innermost depths of your heart. So killing all the obstacles and having a free flow bhakti towards the Supreme Lord. So that's the mention here. The other one, A Chandra Surya Dui Parama Sadaya Jagatera Bhagyesh Gaude Karila Udaya. These two, the sun and moon, are very kind to the people of the world. They, thus, for the good fortune of all, they appear on the horizon of Bengal. Prabhupada here actually in his purport talks about a little bit of a history. He talks about how this whole Gaudadesha, which is now called Mayapur, has taken shape. So earlier it was capital of Sena dynasty. Later it became Gaudadesha, and then it got transferred to the 9th island, which is now called Mayapur. So Mahaprabhu was joined by Nityananda Prabhu from who came from the district of Birbhum in Mayapur or Gaudadesha, and they appeared to spread the signs of Krishna consciousness. And this is where Prabhupada's brilliance comes in. He talks about how sun and moon start from east and move to west. This movement, which has been started in the Gaudadesha, which is actually east of India, and if you consider India is part of Asia, and Asia is also considered east from, we call it east and west. So something that has started in east going to west by Prabhupada's mercy and the Acharya Parampara. So that's what he's describing here, that it started from east and moved to west, and it's completely taken over west. And since we like to copy the West, since we get influenced by the West because of historical reasons, where we have been actually ruled by British, and now that the movement has come back, it has come back even more forceful than ever before. So here there is this mention of also the when we talk about dissipating the basically ignorance, there are in the Mahabharata, it's also stated in the purport that there are 5 types of ignorance, which is mentioned here. The first one is accepting the body to be the self, and then making material sense gratification one's standard of enjoyment, being anxious due to material identification. Now, this is something which is very much seen in modern civilization, where many people like to be seen by some of the material opulences they demonstrate. It could be a fat designation, it could be how they get respected in society, and today that's also become a reason for people's it's become a reason for people's sufferings also, because at all points in time they're looking for an external validation. So that's one of the things which is mentioned. Lamenting. Now, anything which is material, if it is taken away, we tend to lament. If let's say if a car someone has owned, it gets damaged, that's a lamentation. So that's what is also a type of ignorance. And this last one is very important, thinking that there is anything beyond the absolute truth. Now, this is as good as asking if if somebody asks this question, who's behind Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna? So that means he's negating the fact that Krishna himself is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he's the original seed. So somebody is trying to ask a question here, that is there a seed for this seed? That means he's somewhere foregoing the fact that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's what it is. So this is as good as atheism. So that's why it's also an ignorance. So that actually completes 101. Now coming to the next one, Sei Dui Prabhura Kari Charana Vandana.
Sorry, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Sorry, Prabhuji. Before going there, I think this is a very nice point. Like, as you brought it out, like, what is Tama? And first of all, like, as you have mentioned, why, right? Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami is calling Chitra or wonderful, because both are appearing simultaneously, and not only they illuminate externally, but also they illuminate internally. And second point is that, like, how like Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami and Srila Prabhupada elaborates so much on this word tama, or ignorance, or andhakar. So if you don't mind, if you can just open Bhagavatam 3:20-18, and if you can share that, like, so we are not diverting, but I think this is very nicely, like in Bhagavatam,
one dot
3:20.18. So, like as Prabhupada mentioned here, like similarly, there are 5 kinds of tama, or moha, or ignorance, are described very beautifully. We can read that.
1.3.20 or
3:20.18.
1.3.
Sorry, bro. 3:20.18.
Oh, 3.20. Sorry, 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This one, Prabhu. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can read the translation. You're sharing, Prabhuji, you can see your.
You can't? Oh, okay. Okay. I've just shared this part. Let me just share the whole screen here. I'll share the whole screen, Prabhu.
Okay. So maybe somebody can read the translation and purport. It's a little long purport, but it's.
Yeah, this is the one. You're able to see now, Prabhu?
Sasraja Chaya Vidyam Pancha Parmana Prata Tamisram Antha Tamisram Tamo Moho Mahamaha. 5 kinds of. Siddharth Prabhu, you can read the translation.
Yes, Guruji. First of all, Brahma created from a shadow the coverings of ignorance of the conditioned souls. They are 5 in number and are called Tamisra, Andha Tamisra, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoha. Should I read the first also?
Yes.
The conditioned souls are living entities who come to the material world to enjoy sense gratification are covered in the beginning by 5 different conditions. The first condition is a covering of tamisra or anger. Constitutionally, each and every living entity has minute independence. It is misuse of that minute independence for the conditioned soul to think that he can also enjoy like the Supreme Lord, or to think, why shall I not be a free enjoyer like the Supreme Lord? This forgetfulness of his constitutional position is due to anger or envy. The living entity, being eternally a part and parcel servitor of the Supreme Lord, can never, by constitution, be an equal enjoyer with the Lord. When he forgets this, however, and tries to be one with him, his condition is called tamisra. Even in the field of spiritual realization, this tamisra mentality of the living entity is hard to overcome. In trying to get out of the entanglement of material life, there are many who want to be one with the Supreme. Even in their transcendental activities, this lower grade mentality of tamisra continues. Should I carry on with you?
Yes, bro. Yes, bro. So, like, as we hear that, like, how this is covered as a tamo nudo, right? Like, dissipating the ignorance. So, tamo here, like, very wonderfully described. What are the 5 kinds of tamo, or right? This. So, yeah.
Okay.
So, maybe first we heard about tamisra, then, Prabhupada talks about andha tamisra. Yes. Yes.
Andha tamisra involves considering death to be the ultimate end. The atheists generally think that the body is the self and that everything is therefore ended with the end of the body. Thus, they want to enjoy material life as far as possible during the existence of the body. Their theory is, as long as you live, you should live prosperously. Never mind whether you commit all kinds of so-called sins. You must eat sumptuously, beg, borrow, and steal. And if you think that by stealing and borrowing you are being entangled in sinful activities for which you will have to pay, then just forget that misconception, because after death everything is finished. No one is responsible for anything he does during his life. This atheistic conception of life is killing human civilization, for it is without knowledge of the continuation of eternal life. This antha-tamisra ignorance is due to tamas. The condition of not knowing anything about the spirit soul is called tamas. This material world is also generally called tamas because 99% of its living entities are ignorant of their identity as soul. Almost everyone is thinking that he is this body. He has no information of the spirit soul. Guided by this misconception, one always thinks, this is my body and anything in relationship with this body is mine. For such misguided living entities, sex life is the background of material existence. Actually, the conditioned souls in ignorance in this material world are simply guided by sex life. And as soon as they get the opportunity for sex life, they become attached to so-called home, motherland, children, wealth, and opulence. As these attachments increase, moha, or the illusion of the bodily concept of life, also increases. Thus, the idea that I am this body and everything belonging to this body is mine also increases. And as the whole world is put into moha, sectarians, societies, families, and nationalities are created, and they fight with one another. Mahamoha means to be mad after material enjoyment. Especially in this age of Kali, everyone is overwhelmed by the madness to accumulate paraphernalia for material enjoyment. These definitions are very nicely given in Vishnu Puran, wherein it is said, Tamo viveko moha syad antah karana vigramaha mahamohastu vigyeyo gramya bhoga sukheshana maranam hi andhatamisram tamisram krodha uchyate avidya pancha barvaisha pradhurbhuta mahatmanah.
Thank you very much, bro. Like, for your information, the same verse is there also in 3.12.2, where Brahma like talks about this 5 kinds of ignorance. Like, first is like this tamo, then moha, mahamoham, tamisram, and andhatamisram. This tama is really the ignorance of sarupa. Moham is the forgetfulness of one's real identity, and mahamoham is that possessiveness, that false proprietorship of enjoyable objects. Tamisram, anger upon frustration, like as Prabhupada talks about, tamisram is the anger. When one's enjoyment is obstructed, we get that angry, right? And andha tamisram is like the sense of death, unconscious state brought about by anger. So how, like, we can really understand the different manifestations of tama and this ignorance and this ignorance.
Prabhu, this is 312. 312.
32018.
Yeah,
No,
this
that
is
is
three.
over. That
Yeah,
is
then
Okay.
this
Okay.
312.2, Prabhuji.
312. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, more or less same verse only. There also Lord talks about like Brahma talks about this 5 kinds of Dhamma. Yes, Prabhu, please go ahead, Prabhu. Sorry.
Yeah.
for
No,
digressing.
Prabhu. I think no. This is very important, Prabhu. I think quoting other shlokas and more elaborate commentaries there.
Yeah, just to understand that how much we
yeah.
are in ignorance.
Right.
Different kinds of different layers of ignorance.
Right, Prabhu.
And Lord has come to take us away from that ignorance.
So we covered this part. Next one. Say dui prabhura kari charana vandana yana haite vigna nasha abhishta purana. Let us therefore worship the holy feet of these two lords. Thus one can be rid of all difficulties on the path of self-realization. So here the key words are vigna nasha, which is basically getting rid of the difficulties on the path of realization, and abhishta purana, which is fulfilling one's desires basically. So these are the two things that we get by worshipping the holy feet of these two lords. Ei dui shloke kaila mangala vandana tritiya shlokera artha suna sarva jana. I have invoked the benediction of the lords with these two verses, texts 1 and 2 of this chapter. Now please hear attentively the purport of the third verse. So basically the same concept where we invoke the benediction and then the explanation happens over multiple shlokas on why Kaviraj Goswami said that, and what he meant is well explained in subsequent shlokas. So that's what is quoted here. So the concluding words are basically the last few shlokas are more about Falastuti, and these are the concluding words. So Vaktavya Bahulya Granta Vistere Dhare Vistare na Varni Sarartha Kahi Alpakshare. I purposely avoid extensive description for fear of increasing the bulk of this book. I shall describe the essence as concisely as possible. So again, our acharyas have never forgotten that we are in Kali Yuga, and nobody's likely to study all the bulky texts. And Vyasdev came in and he nicely segmented the Vedas into 4, and that parampara continues where and Prabhupada exemplifies that by giving Bhakti Yoga first up. He knows that people may not have the patience to go through all the entire text, so the medicine is given right up front. So that's the parampara we are in. 106. Mitam cha saram cha vacho hi vagmita iti. So essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. Now I was trying to go through some Wikipedia and trying to gather what actually the sentence means, and this is what I understood. I could be completely wrong, but wanted to just share this. So concise actually means that you give information clearly in few words, and that is actually reflected in 105 also, that you want to make it as concise as possible. Eloquence means as persuasive as possible, as fluent as possible. So it's likely that something is concise may not be persuasive, right? You can because you may just take out the meaning, you may just make it so concise that the meaning is lost and it's no longer persuasive. So it's very difficult to make something concise and persuasive, and that persuasion happens only if you're talking about the supreme personality of Godhead or the essential truth. So that's the persuasion. So using very little words to reveal a lot of information and persuade through the shlokas towards an essential path of towards the path of essential truth is what this single line is trying to talk about. So the next one, Sunile Kandibe Chittera Agyana Di Dosha Krishne Gada Prema Habe Pai Be Santosha. Simply hearing submissively will free one's heart from all the faults of ignorance, and thus one will achieve deep love for Krishna. This is the path of peace. So I was just reflecting on Madhukant Prabhu's earlier class, where he clearly mentioned how submissiveness puts one face to face with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So extending that line, here submissive hearing will do the following. It will do a chitte kandibe chittera ajnanadi dosha. So be freed from all faults of ignorance. Krishna gada prema habe. Achieve deep love for Krishna. Paibe santosha. Attain satisfaction. And janibe saba vastu tattva sara. Learn the essence of the absolute truth. So these are the benefits of, and that's why it's called Falashruti. So if we hear this, all the four is likely to happen, and through submissive hearing. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Advaita Mahatattva Tanra Bhakta Bhakti Nama Prema Rasa Tattva Binna Binna Likiyachi Kariya Vichara Sunile Jani Besab Vastu Tattva Sara. If one patiently hears about the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Advaita Prabhu, and their devotees, devotional activities, names, and fame, along with the mellows of the transcendental loving exchanges, one will learn the essence of the absolute truth. Therefore, I have described this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita with logic and discrimination. So there are no purports here. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Yara Asa Chaitanya Charitamrita Kahe Krishna Dasa. So praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunatha, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Dasa, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita following in their footsteps. So here some reference I've taken from Chaitanya Subodhini, where it's mentioned that in Adi Leela, Srila Prabhupada mentions that the inconceivable character, and this line is going to be repeated at the end of every chapter, that the inconceivable character of Lord Krishna can only be understood by devotees who strictly follow in the footsteps of the six Goswamis. So Kaviraj Goswami is just doing what is mentioned in the purport. So we move on to chapter 2, which basically is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we finished chapter 1 with the 110th shloka, and we move on to chapter 2. Before we move to chapter 2, any reflections, anything? Sorry, Prabhu, if that we have time for that, or we should continue with chapter 2.
Hare Krishna. Anybody have any thoughts? You can continue.
Yes.
So, I just, I mean, this point of, one is this point of submissiveness, and another thing is that it's very, beautifully explained around this ignorance. That I mean, in one of the slides, I think there were 5 pointers were given, which is actually summarizing the meaning of ignorance. I think it was body conscious, like
Right.
Accepting the body, and another was material sense gratification, and third and anxiety, lamenting, and even moria, and one more was this anything beyond the absolute truth. So it is very I mean, it is in 5 lines. It is, I mean, it's very beautifully summarized that what is ignorance means. So from bodily consciousness up to the thinking beyond absolute truth. So I just wanted to bring this discussion that although we read it so many times, and also this this concept of submissiveness also we discuss multiple times in multiple forums and all. What exactly happens because of which this is not very easily practicable?
Correct.
So I mean, this is personally with me. It is, I mean, this submissiveness is something it is very difficult to follow. While theoretically we all say Hari Bol, Dandavat Pranam, this and all that, but heart and heart I know that this submissiveness is very difficult to follow. Although it might appear in the words, and if I observe it is not submissive, not there in other people, I sometimes doubt that should I be observing it or not. And if I'm observing, that means that I'm not submissive. Because I'm observing somebody else is not submissive, something like that, right? Uh, and similarly, this concept of ignorance, these are also, I mean, it's very difficult to cultivate to an extent. It should be cultivated given the time and effort. So any realization from Sundar Gopal Prabhu, Sri Gaur Prabhu, Anand Prabhu, Siddharth Prabhu?
So can I share what I understand with your permission?
Shri Gopinath Pran Prabhu ki jai.
Yeah, Tanus Guna Prabhu, yes, Prabhuji. And
So as far as whatever I understand, when we think that I'm nothing, means nothing, I can't do anything. When I think like that, so obviously I come into a state of helplessness, and then I do understand that if anything I am, like sometimes when we eat, when we are able to digest, when we are able to walk, to that extent also, if unless we have that mercy, unless we have that blessings, we can't put a step. So at every moment that thought, if it is running in the mind, in the background, then it is a little easy to practice this humility. And I know it is very difficult because I am also going through the same challenge. I tend to forget because I have bank balance, I have everything, all facilities in my life. So I will think, why should I become humble? I mean, humility, I may do it, I may show it as an posture in the temple in front of the devotees. But within my heart, I am not humble. So it is a tough position. But by seeing others, by reading so many scriptures, and just like, see, many times we may read about Parikshit Maharaj, it is understood, everybody knows the pastime. But for person like him, who was able to even counteract a curse, he accepts the curse of a small brahmana. Otherwise, anybody can say, hey, kya tu chota bachcha hai, kya bol raha hai tu? Like that, one can react, one can respond. But he accepted it. So it is not so easy to accept when one has already the capacity to counteract it and also rule the kingdom. But he gave it up and he went to the bank of the Ganges. So when we think that I'm nothing and I cannot do anything, that time this feeling of submissiveness becomes little easy, I feel. This is for my own self, I am telling. Please understand that. I'm just sharing what I have been trying to understand. I hope this helps you a lot.
yeah,
Hare Krishna.
thank you.
Practically, sometimes we feel that, if we are being submissive, then we are being exploited. And yes, I am not sure.
No, what I would like to add here is, see, internally within the consciousness, we should be knowing that, okay, actually I'm helpless. Externally, we may do, like supposing you're a boss in an organization, or you are given a seva in a temple like Janmashtami seva. We may have to order, we may have to command, we may have to be strict, we may have to be little aggressive. All these things, external behavior, actions, all that will happen. But internally, we must know that if I'm able to achieve or accomplish something, it is not due to me alone or myself. That is an internal thing which is happening inside and not seen outside.
Someone also told me that, if you are part of ISKCON's management, by default you will become humble.
Mm.
And yeah, you will actually. Like, I had a taste of it. So escaping from responsibility is also, we think, oh, it's too difficult and all, but actually that is how probably, Krishna or Prabhupada has arranged things. Services are very important because devotee association is what makes you humble.
Wonderful point, Roger. Wonderful, wonderful. It's wonderful realizations. Because I might think that yes, why to do some seva, because we bring that seva, we commit so much offenses, and our real, ego comes out, and real form comes out. But then, unless we get tested, till that point of time, we think that yes, I am really already a pure devotee. But then once we are tested, once the real ego comes out, then we see that how poor I am, how long I have to go. Because yeah, it's a conditioning for years and decades and lifetimes. It's not easy, but then the purification process is to really take, as you said, to take some responsibility, and because Prabhupada says again and again, once we take responsibility, we grow. And it could be like if we take sincerely our family responsibilities as well. If we take a responsibility of ourselves, take responsibility of, whatever seva that we might have, if you take it seriously, everything has an opportunity. Like Lord is there to humble us through different ways, like through, like different devotees go through different process of, being humbled. Hare Krishna.
And also when it comes to ignorance, like once I was sitting with Harishet Prabhu, and he just said that, sometimes devotees think that preaching is something, we can do, we should not do and all. But preaching is very much a part of sadhana, bhakti. It is, the way we have to get up early, we have to chant our rounds, follow this. So preaching is very much part of it. And when we start preaching, all these points written in this 5 points, you have to speak them again and again and again. And when you speak in front of public, they start questioning, right? Did you speak that? And you will yourself, right? It's like a cyclic thing. So preaching is one thing which really helps. Like these things, humility and submissiveness and, overcoming ignorance, these things will not come by sitting at home and contemplating. And, this will come when we go out in public.
Okay.
So you're showing your example how to be a Sankirtan leader on the street, on the virtually everywhere. So yes, it's a long way to go, but we have to take some steps. Thank you, Sri Gaur Prabhuji.
Thanks to you.
But as you said, Prabhuji, like yes, that is a mode of Gaur Nitai, that they have come us, to take some responsibility, and that's how our heart really gets fertile, our heart really gets appropriate to receive, and Chitra Sando Tamo Nudo. That's how our ignorance will get really removed.
What was that, Prabhuji?
Like this is the verse, bro, that we are discussing, right? Like where like Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaudadai Puspavanto Chitra Sando Tamonudo. Like this is the verse, right? The verse number 84, or this is the second verse of the Mangalacharya. That's Krishna Kaviraj Goswami described now, right? From this 85, 87, 88 to 95, right? So this is so wonderful verse. Like we can remember also, and we can recite again and again to take shelter of Gaur Nitai, to remove our ignorance. And it is very, very appropriate, Prabhuji. Whenever we are in ignorance, we are any anarthas like lust, greed, anger, whatever attacks us, right? Whatever the form of ignorance, you have to just take shelter of Gaur Nitai, and somehow they will protect us, right? And how? Of course, it's up to their plan. But yes, we always remember that Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Gaudadaya Puspavanto Chitra Sando Tamonudo. You have to remember this again and again. Take shelter of Gaur Nitai and his associates.
So we are actually close to time. So should we continue, or how do we?
I had one reflection on this as you completed the first chapter. Can I share?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes.
Okay. So as our Anand Jayaraman Prabhu was completing the first chapter, I was thinking that how Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, actually he's around 90 years old, and in this chapter there are 110 verses, and these 110 verses are to glorify and to offer respects and to offer obeisances to the spiritual masters. That's only the theme, that's the only topic. And usually you will see when authors write the book also, one page, half page, they will say, I thank so and so, I thank so and so, so and so a person has contributed, like that they may write. But here so elaborately, see, at that age, first he will also be in a hurry to convey the message to the audience, to the readers. So he has not yet come to that point, and first he's glorifying only, because at that ripe age anything can happen. But he's trying to focus and give. That means how much importance they give for the spiritual master and the beginning. Just like our Mangalacharan, for example, in the morning Mangalacharan, we may be spending half an hour time. One may think, okay, मेरा 4 round हो जाएगा, मंगलाचरण इतना करने से जल्दी जल्दी हो जाएगा, like that, no? So that's what I'm just trying to think. I don't know whether I'm right, but this is one of my thoughts. Means how much time he has allocated just to glorify the spiritual master.
It's a wonderful, Prabhuji. It's wonderful once again, like how you really got that point. Once again, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he personifies that mood of humility. That how he's really saying that, yes, I was nothing, I am nothing, I'll be nothing. And everything is because of the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, right? That's how he shows by example. That's how he shows what it means to be humble. Thank you. Thank you, Gopinath Ram. Siddharth Prabhu, or anything you'd like to say before we wrap up? I think.
Yes, Prabhuji, I like this point very much. That I was just reflecting on what Sri Gopinath Prabhuji said. That generally all the whatever books you read, they will actually pay some respect to, or some sort of homage to whom they learned from. But it is generally very short. Like even if it is some acknowledgements will be there, which will be like 1 or 2 pages at the max. And this is like one entire chapter dedicated to the spiritual masters, and that ripe old age, it's like very difficult for us to, especially for me to imagine. I'm still young, like what like people would feel at that time. So thank you so much for this, Puji. And one more thing, Anand Guruji, what he mentioned, that is given in the purpose, that also point I like very much, that how the sun and moon rise from the east and move to the west. Similarly, this movement also will spread to the west. This is sort of given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Thank you for sharing that one.
Actually, I've also heard people explaining that usually the sun will rise, and when it is setting only moon will rise, but here at the same time both are rising, sun and the moon at the same time. Generally in the world, when we see outside, we will see that sun is setting, moon is rising, moon is setting, sun is rising. We don't see it together. But the mercy of Gauranga and Nityananda is that two of them have appeared simultaneously.
Yes, yes, wonderful. It's all vichitro, vichitro. These are all wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Anand Prabhu. Anything else you want to have your closing comments?
No, I think it was very, personally, I felt very happy, going through this, trying to at least going to the depths of whatever shlokas came my way. So thankful for the opportunity here, and all the nice realizations, Sri Gaur Prabhu, Gopinath Prabhu, Madhukant Prabhu, yourself, Sudhir Prabhu. I think very good reflection around the fact that service can bring in humility, which is the sum and substance of what Sri Gaur Prabhu was mentioning. That you don't need to practice it. You start serving Vaishnavas, you will automatically get that. Right? That's a very pertinent point. And Gopinath Pran Prabhu summarized that very nicely, that sun and moon rising together is a spectacle. We don't see that at all, right? It's one setting down, the other coming up. So wonderful realization. And also the aspect of Kaviraj Goswami glorifying 110 verses for when he's at a ripe age of 90, shows how humble he is, right? So all very, very great realizations.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. The way you connected Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, like that Bhakta Bhagavat and Sastra Bhagavata, and also, right, the service and all that you put together very nicely. Thank you very much for doing so much research and really sharing your realizations, heartfelt realizations. Thank you, Prabhuji. Anything else, Sri Gaur Prabhu or Madhukant Prabhu, before we wrap up?
So,
Prabhuji,
next 29th ko we should do in person.
so yeah, we can stop the recording and discuss.